Hello, orientation to the teaching profession. Welcome to week 5, our final week of this class. This class always flies by, and it did again. And so I just wanted to, I have a whole list of things here, of things to make sure and touch base on for our class and also for the next class for 201B. But the first thing I wanted to touch base on is I had the opportunity to read and respond to your interviews and observations, and this was to the PowerPoints, but they were amazing. And what really struck me was, as I was reading well, first of all, the PowerPoints, first of all, I learned not only a ton from the information, but also now I have all these ideas of all these things I want to do, because I use PowerPoints a lot when I present and when I teach, and you gave me some fabulous ideas, so thank you. And then the interviews and the observations, the authenticity and the depth and the honesty that you brought to them, and it made me yet again so relieved that I don't give standard questions or prompts, because the questions that you asked were so much more interesting than anything I could have come up with. So and I found myself just kind of sinking into the worlds that you created with these teachers and with these classrooms. And thank you. Not a single person transcribed. I think that's the first semester this has happened. And you really brought honesty, you brought opinion, you brought subjectivity, and you also backed everything up with the readings and with what we've been studying. It was absolutely pretty incredible. And what came through was the level of knowledge that you've gained and bring into now the classroom and into the observations or interviews. As you spoke about transmission, generative, transformative, you really knew what you were talking about, and then you provided really substantial evidence. So thank you so much for those. And the idea evaluation for this week, and I wrote about it, it's on the list to do this week. And I've heard from actually a number of you that you have not yet received it in your SFCC email. Whoops. We'll just answer that phone call later, that you have not received it in your SFCC email. And so I am working on that. I contacted the person who is responsible for sending those out to students, and she is following up on making sure that they are sent to you. So they will appear in your SFCC email. They will not appear in Canvas anywhere. And so when you get that, if you could pop me an email and just let me know so I can send something out to the class and let everybody know. Our class ends on Sunday. You will absolutely have them by then. I'm hoping you'll have them today, but no matter what, you'll have them by Sunday. And this is something that, it's the course evaluation. There is absolutely no way for me to know if you submitted it or not. I would be so grateful if you would take the time to submit the course eval. It is completely anonymous, but it really, first of all, the college it's really important to the college that each class has a high participation of this, so that they can really have a sense of the course. And so I know it's one extra step. I know you got to go to the SFCC email, but if you could pretty please do that, that would be just fabulous. And like I said, if you there's a place for extra credit. You get extra credit points if you submit it, even though I have no idea if you have or not, but I will take you at your word if you tell me that you submitted it. And all it is under that assignment link is you just say, Dawn, I submitted it, and I absolutely will believe you. So, but that would be really grand if you would take the time to submit that course evaluation once you have it. I wanted to read, and this week we're diving into the language acquisition, bilingual education, first and second language acquisition. And as I wrote, if you teach anywhere in Santa Fe or on planet Earth, it's really important that you understand these things, primarily because so many of the language acquisition issues that you will see in schools are counterintuitive. For example, it seems counterintuitive that the primary indicator for success in an additional language is literacy in the primary language. So if we want students to be primary language Spanish speaking students, or another language, in Santa Fe most are Spanish speaking. For those of you who are in Gallup, it would be, you know, an indigenous language. But the primary way, the primary factor for academic success in another language is literacy and high levels of proficiency in the first language. So if we want them reading and writing beautifully in English, they got to learn how to read and write beautifully first in Spanish. And that seems so counterintuitive until you understand language acquisition, which is what one of those chapters is all about. And then the other chapter, Raven's Time, was written, basically, it was written from years of talking with teachers in this program who are teaching in Santa Fe and around New Mexico, and listening to their questions, listening to their, they just, you know, their questions basically about not understanding, okay, why is there this conflict between the Mexican immigrants and the northern New Mexican Hispanics? Why is there this conflict between, and what are these dynamics? And so that piece was written in the hopes of providing insights specifically for teachers in New Mexico, actually throughout the Southwest. And many of those, the dynamics that we experience here are actually experienced around, they're experienced around the world. It's just different groups of people. So that is what inspired, that's what inspired Raven's Time. So I really, as you've probably picked up on, that's something I'm tremendously passionate about, and I really look forward to the discussion and the conversation around those ideas. I wanted to read, first I wanted to share one of these books. So this is something, Kickstart Your Class. Did I show you this book already? I don't know. I may have already shown you this book. By Luann Johnson. I'm thinking I did. Academic Icebreakers to Engage Students. In case I didn't show you this book, this is a fabulous resource for, you know how we did, you read that piece on freedom, what is it, within structure and all of the ways of creating an engaged curriculum and content with the conversation line, the conversation circle, you know, those kind of things. I'm thinking I told you this, but anyways, this is fabulous ways to start a class. There's infinite numbers of possibilities here. I use this constantly. And so when we're looking at composing the narrative arc of a class, you talk about a way to start off or bring closure. Here is tons and tons of resources. So in case I didn't already tell you this, I wanted to make sure and tell you. I wanted to read a book that we used to use as a text in this class, and we've since moved. But this book, for those of you who are not familiar with Parker Palmer, he would be a great person to become familiar with. And this is called The Courage to Teach. And I'm just going to read the beginning page of this. Teaching from within, we teach who we are. I am a teacher at heart, and there are moments in the classroom when I can hardly hold the joy, when my students and I discover uncharted territory to explore, when the pathway out of a thicket opens up before us, when our experience is illuminated by the lightning life of the mind. Then teaching is the finest work I know. But at other moments, the classroom is so lifeless or painful or confused, and I am so powerless to do anything about it, that my claim to be a teacher seems a transparent sham. Then the enemy is everywhere, in those students from some alien planet, in that subject I thought I knew, and in the personal pathology that keeps me earning my living this way. What a fool I was to imagine that I had mastered this occult art, harder to divine than tea leaves, and impossible for mortals to do even passably well. If you are a teacher who never has bad days, or who has them but does not care, this book is not for you. This book is for teachers who have good days and bad, and whose bad days bring the suffering that comes only from something one loves. It is for teachers who refuse to harden their hearts because they love learning, and the teaching life. When you love your work that much, and many teachers do, the only way to get out of trouble is to go deeper in. We must enter, not evade, the tangles of teaching so we can understand them better and negotiate them with more grace, not only to guard our own spirits, but also to serve our students well. Those tangles have three important sources. The first two are commonplace, but the third and most fundamental is rarely given its due. First, the subjects we teach are as large and complex as life, so our knowledge of them is always flawed and partial. No matter how we devote ourselves to reading and research, teaching requires a command of content that always eludes our grasp. Second, the students we teach are larger than life and even more complex. To see them clearly and see them whole and respond to them wisely in the moment requires a fusion of Freud and Solomon that few of us achieve. If students and subjects accounted for all the complexities of teaching, our standard ways of coping would do. Keep up with our fields as best we can and learn each technique to stay ahead in the student's psyche. But there is another reason for these complexities. We teach who we are. Teaching, like any truly human activity, emerges from one's inwardness, for better or worse. As I teach, I project the condition of my soul onto my students, my subject, and our way of being together. The entanglements I experience in the classroom are often no more or less than the convolutions of my own inner life. Viewed from this angle, teaching holds a mirror to the soul. If I am willing to look in that mirror and not run from what I see, I have a chance to gain self-knowledge. And knowing myself is as crucial to good teaching as knowing my students and my subject. In fact, knowing my students and my subject depends heavily on self-knowledge. When I do not know myself, I do not know who my students are. Good teaching requires self-knowledge. It is a secret hidden in plain sight. So, Parker Palmer, The Courage to Teach. He has a new book out called A Hidden Wholeness, The Journey Toward an Undivided Life. So I wanted to make sure and share him with you. I wanted to talk about I almost forgot. And as I was thinking about reading that for our class today, and this is something I normally don't actually talk about in my teaching courses. I talk about it in my writing courses, but not my teaching courses. One of the things that I do when I teach is an idea that actually I write about in Meadowlark, and it's that idea of song, and this idea that each of us has our own song. Each person, each plant, each thing has our own song, and that when we can tap into that inner song and make it bigger and bigger and bigger, that song eventually becomes one's shield. And I use that in teaching constantly, is I'll tap into, and each of us, the place that we go to discover that song is unique. But then I try to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And as that energy grows, many of you have written about the haters, many of you have written about bureaucracy, many of you have written, well, actually everybody has, about these aspects in education that have the potential to really suck any joy out of it. And so for me, what has been crucial is this discovery of song, and I do it every time before I go teach. I do it before I get on this video, and kind of thinking about that and pumping it bigger and bigger and bigger. And that becomes your shield. So I wanted to make sure and remember to share that with you. In 201B, your field component will be working with a learner. So sometime between now, our class ends on Sunday. The 201B starts on October 6th. One really helpful thing would be for you to find a learner. It can be any student, any age. But you're going to work with a single student the whole time, and you won't be evaluating them. You'll find out more about what will happen in the course. But just a learner would be just kind of start thinking. It can be preferably not a child, not your own child. It can be a niece, it can be a nephew, preferably not one of your own students or your own child. So I just wanted to take this moment also to thank you for a fabulous course. I loved working with you and us sharing this time together. I would love, as I mentioned, for me, in my experience, a community of teachers, a community is crucial. So, at least it makes life a whole lot better. So if you are interested in staying in touch, I would love to do so. I do Twitter, I do Facebook. You can sign up for Dewdrops, any of those things. But I just mostly wanted to say thank you for bringing your heart and soul and intellect and authenticity to our class. And I will miss working with you every week, and have a fabulous time in 201B.